Hey, I'm Brian Van, SportbikeTrackGear.com, and today we're going to install the Bazzaz QS4 USB standalone quick shifter on a 2018, same for 2017, Kawasaki Z125 Pro. How in the hell are you going to ride this bike without a quick shifter, right? You have to have clutchless upshifting no matter what you're riding. Let's make this mini bike better and install this Bazzaz unit. This is actually Jimmy's bike. Jimmy's going to go race this bike with STT at Autobahn. They have a little mini GP, so he literally went to K&W Cycle, bought this motorcycle only to do that, and he is hustling to get it together before the weekend so he can go do that for his Labor Day weekend, and he sucked me in to doing the video install. We've done some Bazzaz stuff before. They make great components. I really enjoy their stuff, right? Quality's great, functionality great. They also have some solid instructions. With this bike, odds are, this could be a newbie working on this, and they make it pretty darn easy. Full color pictures, step-by-step instructions. You guys already know I'm probably only gonna pay a little bit of attention to the instructions because I like to just jump into it and see what's gonna happen. To begin this process, what we have to do is we have to get off the rear seat. Some bodywork panels. Show you how to do that. Okay, I already pulled the other side panel off. Steve may or may not show that right in the video, but we'll focus on this side for you. They are, in fact, the same. 4mm T-handle back here. Remove this fastener. There is a nut welded to part of that passenger peg assembly. So that comes right out, no backup wrench needed. Now you can see Jimmy's already installed a set of driven racing rear sets on this bike. And as I discovered on the other side, he followed the instructions and he used a whole bunch of Loctite on there, right? So it's gonna make it a little more difficult removing the bolts because, well, that stuff really works. Need to remove the rear set so that we have the ability to pull off this side panel. Well, I'll say this for the Loctite he's got on here. For anybody who will ever borrow and ride one of Jimmy Fox's bikes, you can trust the bolts are probably not going to fall out, which is a good thing. Okay, kind of let that dangle to the side right there. Now we can kind of focus on this panel. Okay, from here it's held on with some push pins that go through rubber grommets, okay? There's one screw at the top. That's easy to take off, right? And so for the rest of it here, all you need to do is just, put a little bit of pressure and then a little backwards pressure here to release it from its mounting points, right? This kind of dips under there. So to show you, here, 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 and then here, right? With a fastener right back there and one more up here. So it's really easy to get that panel off. Just follow those steps. Okay, we're ready to dive in. The first step is we got to get the harness on the bike. Let's take a look at this Bazzaz harness right now. They build all of these in-house and excellent quality, right? They do a phenomenal job. Weather pack connectors where needed, right? OE style connectors. This stuff's gonna plug right in for the most part. We've got the bodywork off. The coil can be accessed on the other side of the bike. We need to be able to get to that. That is basically step one. Step two, we're over here. Crank position sensor, speed sensor, stuff like that. So let's take a look at the harness here and get an idea of what it's gonna take to get this installed nicely. Where do we wanna locate the unit, so on and so forth, right? Obviously power and ground, we're going to pick that up here by the battery. Just kind of looking at their instructions, pretty simple stuff, and we're on our own in terms of where we're going to choose to locate the modules. So I'm going to begin by slipping this harness up into place. I want to kind of follow the frame rail over here. So we can attach this right to essentially that OE harness that's already in place. Okay, so we're going to kind of dip that up in there. I'm going to take that speed sensor connector. I'm just going to kind of dip that over just to hold the harness in place right now a little bit and begin to mock this up. This will attach to the strain gauge for the actual quick shift itself. The rest of this, right, needs to come down a little further. And on the other side of the motorcycle is where the coil is located. So what I'm going to do right now is we're going to go to the other side. Steve will follow me. I want to take a look and see what that looks like and find the best possible place to pass that harness through and over so it's out of the way. We don't have to worry about it rubbing on anything. So they've got some that already pass over there. They want to go to the green terminal on the coil, which is right there. Okay, I've identified where the coil is at, right? So I know what I need to do there, and now what I want to do is I want to begin to just get this harness in position, right? And while I'm doing that, I will get the coil wires for the unit routed appropriately, right? And these need to come down right here. And this is something you might need to do more than once, right, before you land on the best possible routing for your application, right? Now, the coil, I'm going to take a good look at this and find the shortest possible path. What I want to do is kind of come up here, like so, and I'm going to feed it right through this gap there. This can tuck in. Back here. Feed those over that way. You kind of come up here and take a look and check the lengths. Make sure we can reach the battery. You know, I'm thinking the quick shift module itself can reside right here on top of the factory ECU. Power and ground are absolutely important, so we'll make sure that we can get that located there. That looks good. This is going to be for switched power, right? We'll find that somewhere else here in the motorcycle as we continue to work. This will route down to the factory speed sensor, which is back here. I'll let this piece just hang out for right now because that's going to go to the Bazzaz strain gauge. Like so. That's right there. Let's go over and take a look at the coils. Okay, it wants the green terminal, which is right here on top. So we're going to disengage that, plug in place the Bazzaz connector. Okay, we're ready now to take the factory coil connector and hook it to the spade bit on the Bazzaz. Pretty important. We've got a lot of metal under here. We don't want this stuff grounded out. There is a protective boot. I couldn't get it to slide in there, so what I'm going to do to just kind of enhance this install just a little bit and make sure that we don't have any problems, because, you know, if Jimmy's racing in that little GP race, I cannot have him coming up short because I screwed up his install. So just a little piece of shrink tube here. Help us out. We're going to slide this over. That Bazzaz spade bit. Now we can come in here. Obviously make sure you got a complete and positive engagement. See this boot, I just could not get that to slide in there perfectly. You could use electrical tape, but we're going to use this. It's going to be a little cooler. Hopefully I don't burn Jimmy's bike down. I'll heat it up. So that stuff's pretty cool. I got a couple packages of this. It's pretty handy anytime you're doing any type of customization, right? on any of the bikes. I'll get that to shrink up a little more around the connector. And now we've got a good seal, so he's not going to have to worry about anything. Right? Just keep chasing that a little bit. So now we don't have to worry about that grounding out at all. That's sealed up real nicely. And we'll be able to get in here, and when we secure the harness, we'll take care of that. Now let's go back to the other side of the bike. Slide this boot up, and you want to look for the connector essentially that is going to accept this. This just goes in line with your factory connector. And here is the correct one. Once again, how nicely that all goes together. Bazzaz does a great job with that. Okay, you can go ahead here and secure all this inside that boot. Once again, this is really important. These are not weather pack connectors, okay? And of course it can get wet, so you want to make sure that you've got this protector. It's kind of a watershed device too, directing the water away from those connectors. So take your time, get that all slipped over, and we're going to go over all of this, right, with cable ties and whatever it takes to really secure the harness firmly in place, right, before we send him off to win the mini GP race. Okay, so we'll kind of come back to that. Now, our speed sensor. That is right down here. That's right, we're introducing a flashlight to our video installs now. Check it out, you can see this connector down there, right? Instead of Steve showing you a black hole, we can see what we're doing. Depress the release tab on the connector and then push back, okay? You always want to try and avoid yanking on wires, that's a bad idea. There it is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this out over here so you can see it. Going to go ahead and slide that in. Once again, good positive engagement, nice click. And let's come back down here. Share a little fun fact with you. I just started watching Game of Thrones with my wife. I asked Video Steve here if he's into it. He said, "No, he watched 2 episodes, they talk too much." So he doesn't watch it. Personally, I think it's pretty cool. Get that connector in there, slide it over, push it down. You're going to hear a click, and that's going to indicate that you've got it in place. That thing right now, it's just flapping in the breeze. All this stuff is, we're not ready to tie it down yet, okay? There is the connector for the Bazzaz, the actual strain gauge itself. Let's have a look at that. This allows you to adjust the sensitivity up or down. Very easy to use. Here is the connector that connects to the Bazzaz harness. And then, of course, here is the strain gauge. What's unique about this is that it is pressure sensitive. It works in either direction, so you can use this bad boy for standard or reverse shift. If you change your mind midway, you have the freedom to do that with this. And that is one of the high points, in my opinion, of this as compared to the other products that are on the market now. So this, you're going to want to have this stowed away somewhere safely. And you also want to be able to get to it easily for adjustment. With this bike, that seat, you turn the key, the seat pops right off. So that's going to be a great place to locate that, right? And if I know Jimmy, he is definitely going to want to be able to get to the module and that strain gauge, because he is going to play with and adjust everything. He's not happy if he cannot hook a laptop to it. That is for sure. I'm just going to kind of route this down here right now, Just let it hang freely, and we're going to come back up top and we're going to look for a power and a ground source. Okay, negative battery cable is off. We'll slide back the protective covering like that, and here is the negative terminal fastener. Slide that through the eyelet right there. I'm going to alter the routing a little bit from what they showed in the image. I just don't really love the idea of it, kind of rolling right over the top of the positive battery cable. I mean, you do have a wire that is right to the negative terminal on your battery. The thought of that just kind of going over this terminal, if that cuts, grounds, that's no bueno. So we're going to go ahead and freelance a little bit there again. Modules right here is where I'm thinking. They want you to go back to this red wire here on that taillight connector. It's not bad, but what I think I want to do is I want to find the corresponding wire here, because I want to think about how much slack do I have. And I feel like if you go back here, you're really tugging on stuff that's just a Scotch lock. If that thing comes apart, once again, no bueno. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut back this protective cover a little bit. I'm going to isolate the brown and white. I'm going to put the Scotch lock on there and connect here so I'll have more slack. Okay, let's go ahead and take a pair of side cutters, and I'm just going to trim back just a little bit here, enough to allow me to isolate this brown wire. And get that Scotch lock connected to it. All right, so slip that back nicely, rotate that. I think I want to release that from its mount, like so. Disconnect. And rotate that. It was twisted a little bit, and that was making it more difficult than it needed to be to get that in there. And we've got our Scotch lock connector. These are pretty good. These work pretty well. I want to make sure we've got adequate room to install it. We've isolated that brown wire totally. Don't want to damage anything next to it. And then we can crimp that in place. Need a set of pliers to do that. Got those right here. And when you do this, it'll actually lock itself down. You'll see positive engagement from that lock tang right there, okay? That is locked in place. We'll give it just another tiny little squeeze to make sure we're good. That looks great. Bring this around, like so. I'm gonna grab some electrical tape, just fortify that protective covering. It's another good reason to pull that out just a little bit. When you do any install like this, you want to try and think forward, to possible problems that you could have down the road. If you don't get this just right, it's going to have a pretty negative impact on your riding experience. The bike's cutting out, it's not shifting when you want it to, so on and so forth. So this is definitely a great place to take your time. I'm going to try and bring this underneath here, like so. And this slides in. I want to get that seated all the way. Okay, make sure your lock tang is still good. We have our cash money there. Clip that into position. Go ahead and reinstall that clip in place. And that all looks really good. It's out of the way. There's nothing that's going to rub on and create an issue down the road, which is really important. Okay, now just kind of take a little bit of a look here, mock up where we're going to put that module. Like so. See, that's a pretty good spot right there. I really like that quite a bit. Okay, so I can just kind of lay right on top. We do want to make sure that we also have ample room for the strain gauge itself, okay? And this is the portion that's going to plug into the Bazzaz harness, which I have routed right here, okay? So let's go ahead, and while we're here, let's slip that into place. That does it for the harness. Okay, we've got that all hooked up. Now we're going to raise the table back up and we're going to focus on the rear set itself. Okay, it is time to install the strain gauge, the shift sensor itself. Rear set's bolted back on. It is tight. Bodywork's off. We'll put the bodywork on when we're done because I want to have the opportunity to go over all the wiring harnesses, make sure they're routed perfectly and secured. So when we're done with this, we'll take the rear set off, secure, bodywork, and then we'll be finished. For now, we need to remove our heim joints. Okay, these are going to thread into that strain gauge. So let's get this stuff loosened up. Get the jam nuts here. So effectively how this is going to end up is, we're going to have our heim joints threaded right into that actual shift sensor. This is a critical part, how you set up this shifter, right? Jimmy's got his GP shift. You got to make sure you get all the angles right. The shift knuckle angle, the angle from the rear set shifter, so you have optimal mechanical advantage. That breeds consistent shifting. You want to try and work with 90-degree angles at all times if possible. And let's see which direction this is going to thread in. We'll take this off of the stock shift knuckle. With the GP shift on these rear sets, I'm pretty confident we're going to need to rotate this backwards. And if there's any spot in this project where you want to take your time, this is that spot. These threaded in there. Okay, now, and realistically, you can put this in either direction. I am thinking right now that I want to run it like this. I want to loop it over, I want to secure it, and then go behind this driven sprocket guard. That's my intention, and we'll see how that turns out. In order to make shift rod adjustments with this, you need to actually you can't just rotate this endlessly, right? So you're going to have to remove the rod from the bike. It only takes a second, and rotate it to get your shift adjustment dialed in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of start off with the rod as short as possible, right? Get it in place, build out from there, and see where we end up. Okay, shift rod angles. If you've watched me do rear sets, right, this is something that I stress big time, is you want 90 degrees here at that adapter, and you also want to see 90 up here at the shift pedal itself. Now you can see I've got my 90 here. I do not have 90 there, but also I'm too high here at the shifter. I have these heim joints wound all the way into that Bazzaz sensor right now, all the way in. I've also changed all the routing. I've got this routed inboard, okay, on both the shift pedal and the shift shaft adapter right now. Now to achieve the angle I want here, I need to shorten the shaft. I've got these heim joints threaded in all the way. They're buried inside of that Bazzaz sensor right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen everything up. I'm going to take the heim joint out of the top, thread it all the way out. I'm going to cut a few millimeters off, right, so that I'm able to shorten the shift rod and get Jimmy closer to that optimal angle that he wants. Okay, I'm all done over here. This is all buttoned up. I've actually got all the harnesses secured. This is effectively finished. Here's what I want to focus on for you right now. Look at this angle. Look at that 90 degrees. We've got basically 90 down here as well. Also, the heim joints for the shift rod. I'm very careful when I tighten this up, the jam nuts, that these both run in line with each other. You don't want one twisted one way and one twisted the other, because that can cause that shift rod to bind a little bit. So Jimmy went from, I mean, this thing was a sloppy disaster, okay? I made some other adjustments, got these angles really nice. His shifting should be cash money. He will probably literally win the mini GP race solely because of the kick-ass work I did right here. You look at the harness, right? Look at how I tied this down. I had some little tie downs here I put in place, right? I ran this behind that driven sprocket cover. I put a little spacer back there, Superfly. Harnesses up in here, connectors in there, zippy ties here, cable ties here. You know, everything is in areas where it's not gonna rub, zero contact, all up and through here. We've got the module and the USS right up here, so he's able to adjust that strain gauge. A little bit of Velcro to hold that stuff in place. So if he wants to dial it in, all he's gonna do is pull the seat off. When I come back, we'll have the side panels on and we'll just bring this thing home. Okay, there we have it. It is all put back together. You know, just seriously, look at this again. God, that is some serious professionalism right there. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty proud of that. That turned out great. And all that for a mini bike. So this guy can go to a mini bike race. He bought this whole thing to go to a mini bike race on the weekend, Labor Day, with STT and win a race, right? Hopefully I helped him do that with this. All that's left now is the road test. Okay, here we go. It's time to test our Bazzaz quick shift. Everybody knows mini bikes are way more dangerous than actual motorcycles. So to prepare, that's right, baby, I got on the latest and the greatest from Alpine Stars. I got on their GP Tech V2 along with the Tech Air Race Fest. Every mini bike needs a quick shifter.